Ryan Tomset, pole position, first round of APRA this year. How was the car?
Yeah, the car was pretty good. It was hooked up around this perfect conditions around the track, and I just tried to put laps to get a bit chaotic at the start. But yeah, the car was good, so just try and do a lap.
Are there any places you can see like improvement in the car where you need to sort of get a little extra out of it?
I think in a bit in turn 4 and turn 6, there's just a little bit of braking that I was struggling a bit there. But otherwise, the car's perfect everywhere else. So just, yeah, try and use the car as much as I can.
So racing APRA, how have you liked it? Has it felt good? Has it been fun? Good group of people?
Yeah, APRA's it's a great place. It's fun. It's not too competitive. It's a nice, friendly environment. So just go out and have some fun, and everyone's friendly in here. They'll make you feel welcome. So yeah, APRA, good place to start.
How are the cars to drive?
Yeah, the cars, I would say they're probably the hardest cars to drive out of anything. I think as you get higher up in different cars, it just gets easier, as these cars just move around so much and you've got to really struggle to put them in for a lap together. So just if you can control these cars, you can probably control anything else.
Congratulations on pole, and good luck with the weekend. Hopefully everything goes well. Is there anyone you want to thank?
Just like to thank all my sponsors, Baseline, One No Carpets, Bolzen, and Tony the Lead, and also my dad just for all the help, and Tim Craig as well. So thank you to all guys, and good luck to everyone else.
Taking a look at the opening race highlights for the Australian Pulsar Racing Association, proudly brought to you by MRF Tyres, Victorian Championship opening round, brought to you this weekend by South Gundagai Automotive. And it was Dan Smith who was able to get away on the start there, put in front of Ryan Tomset, and the rest of the field in behind him, so came over the hill for the first time. And you can just see the gap opening a little bit there. Matthew Butters sitting in the third place. We pan around with Lee Nuttall, who is in the orange N14. On board with Declan Kirkham, trying to put pressure on the rear of him, of course, in the early stages. All about trying to pick up those all-important positions, as later on in the race, you'll likely find it harder and harder to overtake. It's going to be a short sprint race here on the long circuit. The truck's here this weekend using the short circuit, so a little bit of diverse rubber on the circuit, and also probably a few other things that the guys need to be aware of as well, as we take on board with Tim Maynard in the South Gundagai Automotive car. And you can just see he's trying to close down the gap on the rest of this field in front. Simon Kendrick there in the Sea-Doo Silver N15, chasing down Grant Bray, the newcomer in the Raceway track time car. He's going to look to the inside of him at turn 4, decides to pull the nose out of it. Bray gives him plenty of racing room, and the pair of them go round together. No contact, great driving from a lot of these guys in the MRF Tyres Australian Pulsar Racing Association Victorian Championship opening round. This battle continues. They were all over each other the whole race, and started defending into a pack of 5 with Shane Drew and Tim Maynard closing in on David Bernardi, Grant Bray and Simon Kendrick. You can see down into the back section, Maynard pulling it back a gear and trying to see if he can get the drive onto the back straight to have a look. Kendrick was throwing everything he could at Bray as well to see if he could make a move further up the order. The leaders were starting to walk away a little bit. Declan Kirkham, who was in this battle group, starting to open up the gap just to make his life a little bit easier as well. And yet again, Linus Stern Racing. All of these cars, of course, very evenly matched. It comes down to driver ability and a little bit of setup to be able to see if you can work your way through. On board again with Tim Maynard, you can see he just wasn't quite able to close the gaps through 3 and 4. Through the back section of the circuit, back on with the group, and Declan Kirkham started to fall into their clutches in the late stages of the race as well. So we started to see this really fantastic battle start to develop, as you had 5 cars line astern. You can see here Bray having a look on the rear of Kirkham, not able to be able to get past that time through the back section. Takes a bit of curb. Cars don't mind a little bit of that, depending on how you're trying to hook them up around the corner. You can see Kirkham bouncing the left front over that turn 1 whistle strip just to try to get it hooked in so that he can carry a bit more speed through the turn 1-2 complex. And the rest of the group all behind him as well. You'll notice a couple of other cars just in front of Kirkham there. You can see different variety of cars. Of course, the Australian Pulsar Racing Association running with the 2-litre sports sedans here at Winton Motor Raceway this weekend, and a fair few of them able to push their way through as they're trying to get past the 2 litre sports sedans and continue their battles. As you can see here, Butters all over the back of Ryan Thompson. Done everything he could the whole race to stay right there with him. Thompson, of course, our pole sitter for the start of the weekend. But Butters not able to quite get past him and overhauled during this race. And this battle just continued on and on and on. Lap after lap, the cars slightly different in speed, but still able to stay with each other as they all looked for that opportunity to make the move and pick up a position. Great pressure motor racing from a lot of them. You can see how they lift up the left rear, all pitching over on the nose, trying to get through that back section of the circuit. Very tight and complex. And in one of these cars, you're all about trying to keep the momentum up to them. You can see now, looking to the outside, Simon Kendrick tries the move, and Kendrick makes it work around the outside for now. Bray's going to fight back, but then he gives him the position. Decides to tuck in behind and maybe try a move down in turn 1. So Kendrick with a great move there around the outside. Declan Perkins down into turn 1. Don't need to worry about smoking from the rear wheels in these cars. Of course, as they pitch forward onto the front wheel drive, they lighten up the rear and just drag those rear tyres down into the corner. So it's not really something to worry about. As now, looks like we've got another one trying around the outside. David Bernardi saw that happen with Kendrick and decided he'd try it as well, but not quite able to get there on Bray, and that incentivised Tim Maynard to get in amongst the battle. But out in front, Dan Smith, a clean pair of heels after leading them down into turn 1, and he'd be able to pick up the first race win of the weekend. You can see Tomset was able to close the gap to him in the late stages, as was Butters, but it was Dan Smith who was easily able to bring it home in the end and take a victory there at the end of race 1. So taking a look at the results, Dan Smith, Ryan Tomset, Matthew Butters, Lee Nuttall and Declan Kirkham rounding out your top 5. Race 2 of the weekend for the MRF Tyres Australian Pulsar Racing Association Victorian Championship, proudly presented by South Gundagai Automotive this weekend. You can see a huge move down into turn 1 from Matthew Butters. He was trying to go for the lead, pulled the nose out of it at the final moment as Dan Smith came around the outside. And then Tomset had the nose in there into turn 3, wasn't able to quite do anything about it. And Lee Nuttall's in the number 10 car. We saw him, we're on board with him now. He was there or thereabouts in race 1, just not quite with the pace of the leaders, but much too quick for the battle that was going on behind him. So had a bit of a lonely race, but good to see the All-Stars racing car out there and Lee Nuttall being able to pick up those all-important championship points, of course. Everybody moves up and down the field throughout a race weekend most of the time in the Australian Pulsar Racing Association. So if you can get consistent results, it's very important for your championship. As we go on board with Tim Maynard trying to chase down Declan Kirkham in front. And then the battle there, Tomset all over the rear of Butters, almost wiping the rear bumper as they came down through the final corner. You can just see that's allowing Dan Smith to sort of walk away from them a little bit here. Simon Kendrick in behind as well. Late afternoon sun here at Winton Motor Raceway, so into that corner there, turn 3. The sun's going to be right in their faces. And just have a bit of a tougher time finding the apex late in the afternoon. As we go on board with Nuttall again, you can see the top 4 cars just opened a little bit of a gap on him there. He's going to be trying to just stay in amongst it because you never know what might happen with these guys battling as hard as they are up the front. Butters in the 23, Tomset in the 21. A pair of them minus Stern fighting for position, with Kendrick having a bit of a watching brief in the Sea-Doo car, though he's run a little bit wide through turn 1 there. Very wide, straight across the grass. Rejoins through turn 2. Lucky for him, there's a big enough gap there. And even though he's fallen into the clutches of Nuttall a little bit, he's not going to have to worry too much about pressure from behind. We go on board with Lee Nuttall in the All-Stars racing car again. A few saws at the steering wheel to get it digged into turn 4. So he is no doubt pushing and being incentivised to try to see if he can catch up to take that position away for 4th in the race. Shane Drew pulling to the outside down the back straight. Unfortunately for him, that would see a DNF for the South Gundagai Automotive car. Out for race 3 as across the grass went David Bernardi, finding the outside of turn 1 in a similar way to Kendrick earlier in the race. And Kirkham and Maynard were having a great battle further back as well. This was for 7th and 8th in the race. Maynard putting all sorts of pressure on Kirkham, and after his little off, Bernardi was getting involved with it as well. So you had 3 cars, all N14s, all battling for position in the race, trying to see if they can make their way up on each other. Maynard to the outside, very late braking move. He'll try to switch it back here. You can see how hard he was on the brakes to see if he can get the drive out to get the run down to the final complex, but not able to do anything about it. And Kirkham continues to hold that position down as Bernardi decides he's going to buy into it. We go on board with Maynard for the run down the straight. Pulls another gear and he'll try to late brake into one, but unfortunately for him, the dive has occurred to the inside and he has to give up the position to Bernardi, which is not what Maynard would have wanted, there's no doubt about that. And he'll have to put his head down and try and chase these guys down. Daniel Devonish behind them as well in the Lot 44 vehicle storage car. You can just see in the back of shot. And he's looking to stay as close as he can to these guys because, as I've said before, you never know what might happen in the Australian Pulsar Racing Association, brought to you by MRF Tyres and South Gundagai Automotive this weekend at Winton Motor Raceway. With all the fighting that happens throughout the field, you just never know what your opportunity might be. You may be able to snag a position late in the race as everybody starts to get a bit willing to fight each other, as again they deal with one of the 2-litre sports sedan's back markers and work their way past. This battle was hard to look away from. Very, very good tight racing from the 3 drivers there. All respectful, of course, giving each other enough room but still being able to keep it pretty tight as we go on board with Dan Smith, who, after just holding on in race 1, was able to open the gap to quite a margin in race 2. Very comfortably was able to bring it home and help that Butters and Tomset were really fighting as opposed to driving together, but that meant Dan Smith got a comfortable victory. You can see there on the screen Matthew Butters, Ryan Tomset, Simon Kendrick coming home for 4th and Lee Nuttall in 5th place. After the race, we caught up with Grant Bray to get his thoughts on the Raceway track time car and joining this impressive series.
All right, Grant Bray, round 1 of Victorian APRA. You're here in the Raceway car this weekend. How's it feeling out there?
Yeah, pretty good. Turned up here for the first time lunchtime yesterday and got a couple of practice sessions in yesterday afternoon. Interesting track, pretty tricky and technical.
You're here with the Raceway car with some Pheasant Wood branded on it. You've got some history with Pheasant Wood, you were saying?
Yeah, I first started just out with the track day with Raceway with Phil and had a track day with my son. And then came about that Phil asked me to do a 4-hour race, and so did I think 3 or 4 of those 4-hour races, which was really good, and got the vibe going to start some racing, and then moved up to the APRA level.
Great. Well, APRA this year, do you have plans on contesting the championship and taking this car throughout the whole season?
I'd like to, but budget probably restricts that. I did the first round of the New South Wales at Sydney Motorsport Park, which is a great experience, and now trying the Victorian and getting some more experience on a different track.
Great. Well, good luck for the rest of the weekend. Hopefully everything goes well.
Oh, thanks a lot, mate. Thank you. I'd like to thank Raceway for giving me the opportunity to come down here, Phil for all his help, and my son Joel for coming along and helping with the pit crew.
Sunday morning and race 3 for the Australian Pulsar Racing Association Victorian Championship, brought to you by MRF Tyres and South Gundagai Automotive this weekend at Winton Motor Raceway. You can see the cloud cover had come over by Sunday morning. We finished Saturday with bright skies, and on Sunday it was just a bit overcast, a bit cooler, and that would no doubt change conditions for these guys out there racing. All 11 cars back out there in this one as we go on board with Timothy Maynard, and he's working on the rear of David Bernardi in the 45 car. And Bernardi with a huge slide through the sweeper the first time, and he's spat himself off the track. Has done a great job there not to just rejoin dangerously, really aware driving, and he gets himself back on the tarmac, but he's lost a bit of ground in the early stages, so no doubt that will not be what he wanted to see. And he'll have to do a bit of work to try to get himself back up there as we take on board again with Maynard now trying to chase down Kirkham. We just saw a flashing shot of the leaders as well, with the gap starting to open up at the front as Butters takes a lot of grip and strip on the inside of turn 1. Flipped the car right up into the air there, so he'll have to sort of settle it down to be able to get some pace to try to chase down Dan Smith. We go on board with Butters through turn 4. You just see he's able to turn the car in and go after that position. As Butters comes around a bit of dirt on the inside of the final corner as well, so they'll have to keep aware of that because that will change the conditions, no doubt. And unfortunately for Shane Drew, some more dramas with that car, and he would not be able to finish the race of race 3 for the weekend. Bit of smoke coming from the rear end of that one. Talking of smoke coming from the rear end, but Butters with a big drag of the rear wheels down through turns 1 and 2. Of course, you don't need to worry about that smoke. It just shows you in some ways how hard they're pushing, because it's pitching the car right over, that it unweights the rear wheel and is able to drag it down into the corner. So Butters is really on it here in this race, trying to chase down Dan Smith in front. Ryan Tomset in the Bondi Carport's baseline car, trying to chase both of them down. You can see here Butters has been able to close the gap through the back section of the circuit as these guys deal with a little bit of the 2-litre sports sedans traffic. Of course, running as a combined grid with the sports sedans here at Winton Motor Raceway, starting at separate times. So for a good few laps, the APRA cars are able to run in clear air, and then about midpoint to the second half of the race, they start to close up on some of the slower 2-litre sports sedans, and that just makes life a little bit more difficult for them. You can see Dan Smith's car very twitchy through turn 1 and 2, obviously feeling the pressure from Butters, who's able to close right up into 3. The Agile Energy car showing its pace. You can just see the flash of the lights across the rear bar of Dan Smith's car as well. But not quite able to get to him at this point in time in the race. Tomset sitting right there, learning a lot of racecraft, no doubt, and figuring out what lines work in these cars and how to battle with other drivers. Of course, a great place to develop your racecraft is the Australian Pulsar Racing Association. Plenty of cars that you can get your hands on, and plenty of people who will be willing to help get you out there as well, especially down in Victoria. If you'd like to get racing, make sure to get in touch. There's some great circuits that compete at Calder Park later in the year, as well as taking in Winton Motor Raceway and a trip interstate to the Bend as well on the cards. So check out the Facebook page and the website for more information. You see Tim Maynard here with a little bit of a bumper falling off. I dare say one of the brackets may well have broken as he's launched it over a curb somewhere around the track. And he's coming under pressure from Kirkham. So those two have swapped positions during this race. And now Maynard with a big wide moment through 3 and 4 pulls it back onto the track. He's very lucky that Kirkham there was quite aware of what he was doing. We take a replay. You can just see very, very wide, keeps the boot into it, brings it back on, a bit of opposite lock, bit of correcting. He's on the back straight, ready to go again. So Tim Maynard really pushing that South Gundagai automotive car to its limits, and he's been able to open the gap up on Kirkham a little bit there. A little bit of a touch of the brakes to make sure he's still got a pedal before braking hard into the final complexes. And that front bar though is not going to be helped staying on with a little bit of gravel trap driving like that. We take a look at Bray in the Raceway track time car. He is sitting in 5th place in the race, 4th place in the race, sorry, as it stands. He's got behind him Lee Nuttall, who's dropped back in the mid stages of this race. So Nuttall probably trying to find some pace now as we come towards the conclusion of race 3. And you can just see Dan Smith open the gap a little bit on the 2 cars behind him. Tomset not able to run with Butters, and Butters not quite with the race long pace of Dan Smith in front either. So they'll just try to maintain that gap and see what they can tune up the cars for race 4, no doubt. Be up to Dan Smith to make a mistake at this point as we go on board with Matthew Butters through turn 4. Just nice, very smooth, pointed driving from that car. Seems to be able to move it well around the track, just not quite with the pace to stay with Dan Smith. And Tomset close enough to be putting pressure on, but not close enough to really make a move here in the late stage of this race. We go on board with Dan Smith and DSR Engineering, South Gundagai automotive car, pointing it to the final complex of corners. And he's going to be able to bring it home for yet another victory here at Winton Motor Raceway in the opening round of the Victorian Australian Pulsar Racing Association Championship, brought to you by MRF Tyres and South Gundagai Automotive. Acknowledges the checkered flag there, Dan Smith, as we take a look at the top 10 result. And it's Smith leading home Butters, Tomset, Nuttall and Bray, your top 5 for race 3 at Winton Motor Raceway. Final race of the weekend for the Victorian Australian Pulsar Racing Association, brought to you by MRF Tyres and South Gundagai Automotive. Down into turn 1, it's Dan Smith yet again leading the way. Butters sitting in behind him, Tomset behind that. And you've got Nuttall there, and it looked like it was Maynard being able to pick up a couple of positions down into 1 and 2. It is. So he's been able to get those positions. And now we'll focus on chasing down Lee Nuttall. So it's been a good race start for Tim Maynard as we go on board with Butters, who again is looking at the rear of Dan Smith's car while trying to fend off Ryan Tomset behind him. The Bondi Carpets baseline car chasing down the Agile Energy Mobile. You can see Butters pushing hard into the final complex. He's actually run a little bit wide there at the second to last corner. Able to get it back online though. And Tomset not quite close enough to be able to make a position. It's been a great weekend of racing from the Victorian Australian Pulsar Racing Association. You just see here, look at this battle for third place in the race as Maynard now loses out of position. Bray makes the move down the inside into the final corners, and he's going to be able to pick that one up. So a good move there from him. We'll see if Maynard can do anything about it down in turn 1, though. It looks like Nuttall was slowed, so unfortunate for Lee Nuttall there to drop out of the race in the All-Stars racing cars. Kirkham gets to the inside of David Bernardi, so race 4 of the weekend, and now it's time to make some moves for these guys. Nuttall obviously feeling a problem with the car. He shifted it left and right as they came up over the hill. He's falling into the clutches of Shane Drew and Daniel Devonish as well. On board with Kirkham. We'll just see the opposite lock through turn 4 as he tries to keep the pace up to that car to maybe throw something at Maynard. These 4 pulled away a little bit from Drew and Devonish behind, and Nuttall unfortunately dropping to the very rear of the field. You can just see there the 13 Daniel Devonish, the lot 44 vehicle storage car, trying to chase down Shane Drew as we go on board again with Maynard, who after losing the position to Bray has not been able to get back at him. So Bray showing a clean pair of heels to this group at the moment. Kirkham under pressure from David Bernardi. Bernardi seeing if he can do anything about taking that position as we go on board with Shane Drew in the South Gundagai Automotive red and white car. He's trying to chase down this group just in front of him. Not quite making any inroads yet. You can see the Raceway car in the car. Just bouncing through turn 2 there. Picked up a little bit of curb to the inside. You've got to be careful of that here because it will bounce the car all the way out to the wall, and if you make contact with that, you may well give yourself a steering wheel alignment, which will mean dramas for you later in the race. As on board with Kirkham through the Gumtree section, you can just see Maynard in front. In front of him, Grant Bray, while behind David Bernardi continues to keep Kirkham honest here. Hasn't quite had the pace to throw anything at him. He had that look at turn 3 around the outside. Not much doing around there because it's a long way around through turns 3 and 4. As we get into the late stage of this race, we'll see if he can do anything further. Through 1 and 2, it looks like he might have a bit of a closer look now. We'll have to try to see if he can get to the inside, but Kirkham's awake to it and just disincentivises him as they go over the top of the crest. So Bernardi with more work to do. We go on board with Kirkham, no real opposite lock through turn 4 that time, so obviously the tyres are up to temp and pressure, and he's feeling much more comfortable with the pace of the car, able to plant it where he'd like it to be. And you can just see he's just taking away enough incentive to be able to stop Bernardi from having a look. As we're on board with Kirkham into the final corners, and he's let Bernardi through there on the inside, so maybe he got a bad run onto the back straight. Bernardi's taken a look. Here's Kirkham with a switchback. He's going to look back to the inside at the final corner. Oh, not quite. Not enough room there for him to be able to show the nose, and the contact avoided between the pair of them. So we take a look at Daniel Devonish trying to chase down Shane Drew. A good battle there between Bernardi and Kirkham. Drew now trying to hold off Devonish, the lot 44 vehicle storage car, putting the pressure down, starting to close that gap a little bit. Speaking of closed gaps, and Grant Bray now under pressure from Tim Maynard. The South Gundagai Automotive APRA Victoria car has closed right down on the Raceway track time vehicle. See if he can make a move as they start to work their way through the 2-litre sports stance traffic, though it looks like, to be honest, Bray got a better run off the final corner. He's been able to open the gap again as Maynard gets a little bit balked through turn 1. Unfortunately for him, the lap traffic just there on the racing line, and he has to try to work his way around it. So Maynard, with all that work to do again, he closed the gap, and now he's got to re-close back down on Bray. Not sure he's going to be able to do it with the late stages of this race. As we take a look up front, Dan Smith yet again with a very comfortable lead as he comes through turn 1 and 2. That car looking quite planted over the hill through 3. And he just does not have anyone near him. The Dan Smith Race Engineering South Gundagai Automotive car. He's won 3 races so far this weekend, looking to make it a clean sweep. Didn't quite get pole position in qualifying, so not a full sweep of the weekend, but it's the points that matter in the 4 races, and Dan Smith has been able to pick up what looks right now to be the lot of the points on offer here at round 1 of the MRF Tyres Australian Pulsar Racing Association Victorian Championship, brought to you by South Gundagai Automotive this weekend at Winton. And sure enough, Dan Smith brings it across the line to take victory in the 4th race of the weekend. He leads home Matthew Butters, Ryan Tomset, Grant Bray and Tim Maynard. We caught up with Dan down in the pits to get his thoughts on a great race weekend.
All 4 wins, didn't get pole, missed out by a 10th. Ryan Tomset took pole. He ran new tyres. I decided to just run ones from Bathurst, save a bit of money. But you know, as the races go on, tyres degrade, it all becomes an even playing field. So still managed to get some speed out of the car and take the wins. From race 1, I got a really good start. Didn't really have any pressure until we came across lap traffic that backed us up again. But yeah, once I was clear, it was smooth sailing from there. The event was run well for how many categories were on the ticket. The track was really good, so everyone was pretty well setting their PBs. Winton's really technical compared to Sydney Motorsport Park, but the main differences lie in your setup. Winton, you need something that's really pointy, whereas Sydney Motorsport Park, turn 1, you gotta have something you can be really committed to. But yeah, Winton's very technical. Sydney Motorsport Park's about being smooth, clean, and sort of precise with your driving. Big thanks to Tim Maynard from South Gundagai Auto, MRA for putting the round on, and everyone else who's been along for the journey.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed all the action from the opening round of the MRF Tyres Australian Pulsar Racing Association Championship, Victorian Championship here at Winton Motor Raceway, proudly brought to you by South Gundagai Automotive. Make sure to check out the Facebook page and website for more information on how you can get racing with these guys. Until next time, we hope you've enjoyed the highlights here on Blendline TV. Bye.